All right, we're going to do tournament style puzzle solutions. Takes, now what? Good question. Taking was the obvious move. Now, seems to me the obvious move is to just move into the square and just eliminate this pawn. King C6. And then if he pushes it, we go and just kill the pawn as quickly as possible. We catch him. C6, he goes A6, king to B6, and then if he goes A7, king takes A7. King takes D5, king to B6, king to C5, king to B5, and just fall to A4, etc. So clearly to me, whoa, really? Okay, I got it. That was a really shoddy, kind of a cheap shot problem. Look at this garbage. Obvious. Also obvious. This is obvious stuff. I mean, we had only, look at this, we have one move that doesn't lose. If we go to E1, we're going to get shredded by, you know, whatever. That's terrible, so we just go here. That's forced. He's trying to trick shot us. I'm like, okay, well, that trick shot doesn't work. Yeah, interpose, dummy. Oh, yeah, there you go. No human would ever trade his queen. That's the same as just resigning. So, whatever, dude. All right, let's see if we can do better here. Well, they could do better with a better problem. So, well, I mean, look, it's just the obvious move. Bishop takes bishop. Bishop takes G3. Queen takes F2. You know, those are your checks and captures. Queen takes knight. And queen takes B5 is ridiculous. But of all these obvious moves, you know, the knight could, you know, make a move on E5. So I'm looking at bishop takes bishop. Okay. I mean, he's just losing. I don't see how this guy is not just getting annihilated. I don't see how there's anything wrong with how bishop takes bishop does anything but just win handily. Oh well, whoop-de-doo. This is how it wins handily. He's trying to, we cannot stay on this diagonal because he's going to bring his rooks over and just assault our queen. The only chance we have is getting here to defend the bishop. That is the key. He's trying to dislodge our guardianship of the bishop. So now that I've taught you what his goal is obvious, at least to me it's obvious. The obvious move for us is queen G5, right? And if he plays H4, we just go here, queen F6, and go, you lose. We just Nelsoned him. All right, he just got Nelsoned. Good grief, Charlie Brown. Boy, what do we do here? Good question. We have, well, he's threatening to queen F2 check us, or queen to E1 check us. Even also, G2 could be devastating. Fortunately, it's our move. We can only check him in value. The only valuable check that we have is rook D4 check or queen F8 check. You know, queen takes, we have a couple pieces can take b7. I don't think that's really relevant. A lot of times when you have rook takes b7 option or queen takes b7 option, the fact that you've got two pieces already converging on one square makes it an option. I just don't think it looks like rook takes b7 is, you know, worth a hoot. Queen f8 or rook d4. He could play bishop or knight to d7, which isn't like super awesome, but it could be annoying. The advantage the rook has where it sits, however, is that the rook on b4 prevents him from fleeing to b6. So if we went like queen to f8 check, he goes up to either c7 or d7. I would think c7, but if he goes to d7, then we can play rook d4. Well, actually, no, we can play rook d4 check. No, if we play rook d4 check, you know, that inner position is a pain. So that's a tough question. But you know, let's just see here. Queen f8 check. Let's say king d7. Then rook d4 check is devastating because he's forced to move his king. There's no interposition. So king to c7 is met by an obvious move to me. Now, do any of you see it? If you see it, fine. That's terrific. If you don't see it, you may want to pause the video. And we'll be right back. And we're back. Okay, hopefully you saw after queen to f8 check, king to d7, rook to d4 check, king to c7, it's mate in one. All right? I have confidence that every one of you guys, when I say it's mate in one, it won't take you very long. It doesn't matter if it takes a minute or 2 minutes. If you're a lower rated player and it takes you longer, don't worry about it. Everybody was once low rated. Even the greatest of all time was once a terrible player in the beginning. So that's why you're here, to get better. So there's mate in one after queen f8, king d7, rook d4 check, king c7. It's mate in one. So queen f8 check, king d7 looks like no good. I think we can all agree with that assessment. That looks terrible. So, because he just walks into a straight mate. The question is, ooh, man, that's almost good. The question is, what do we do with that king? Oh, queen f8 check, king c7. I mean, I don't think queen g7 check, you know, king to, well, I don't know, d8. For example, you know, queen takes rook is necessary. In fact, queen takes rook would lose. So he can't go queen g7 and queen takes rook. That just loses. I don't think we gain anything, but I'm looking at it. Maybe there is a gain by queen f8 check, king c7. Well, queen g7 check, he just puts the bishop in front. And we're in bad shape. Well, yeah, pretty bogus. Although, actually, maybe not. Maybe we could play queen takes g3 check. That has promise. Let's look at this again. Queen f8 check, king c7, queen g7 check, something, let's say knight. The knight will guard e5, so let's say knight to d7 on the inner position. Queen takes g3 check, he plays e5. Okay, now his mate threat has been dissolved. So our king has a little more breathing room, but I'm not convinced. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pawns for black. Ugh. We have sacrificed 2 pieces. Queen takes g3 to me is just not good enough. You've gained a pawn and relieved a minor, some kind of what's a major threat. But that's not enough. This is not working. Queen to g7 check doesn't cut it to me. That's just my personal opinion. I'm looking to do something different. So let's see. Well, what about rook d4 check? I don't know. Let's just say knight to d7. Something. The advantage of that move is that, let's just go knight d7, queen to f8 check, just for interesting. King to c7 is forced, the only move. So the rule of the only move is when he has only one move, the only move that we're winning. That's my rule. So rook d4 check. The only move is something to d7, knight or bishop. Let's just go knight. The knight does create another whole square, possibly to hide in at b8. I don't think that's where he's going to go, but it is possible. So I like knight to d7 because it gives him control of e5, and also knight on g to f6 would be useful. So rook d4 check. Knight d7, queen to f8, the knight is pinned, he cannot take our queen. King to c7, we can hit him with queen, well, we could hit him with queen to d6 check, trying to force him to be, well, we hit him, not queen to d6, just hit him with bishop to d6, forcing king to b6. That, I think, is useful. Because then we can go right back to rook to b4 check. He can never go back to c7. So we've got him transferred to the a file. So he can play king to a5. Yes, our bishop is on d6. So he can play king to a5 or king to a6. If he goes king to a5, we would have queen to c7 check. Or king to a5. Our bishop is blocking him on d6. King to a5, we do have bishop to c7 check. And he could play like b6. But then we'd have queen to c5. No, yes, we would have queen to c5 check. Dude, that's so nasty. This has got to be the way. Let's just double check again. Rook d4 check. Knight d7. Oh, that knight is going to b6. That's okay. Knight d7. Queen f8 check. Knight is pinned here, so he can't take it. King to here. The rook is on d4, so bishop can move to d6. Forces king to b6. Bishop to c7 check. Well, no, we could go. Well, we could do that actually. We could do bishop to c7 check with the rook here. The queen's there, so we'd still have the ability. Oh, geez, that's actually bishop to c7 check is better. Because the rook is here, And now if he goes to b5, our queen can play queen to c5 check. Oh, he cannot play queen to c5 because the bishop is there. But queen to b4 check would be playable. He is just getting mated. Right? Check. He's forced to go to a6. We hit him with queen to check here. King to b5 is forced. Rook to b4 check. No, he can't go to b5. He's getting mated. He just mated. Oh yeah, dude, this is totally winning. There's the knight move. Goodbye, Charlie. Bishop to d6 check. Oh, okay. I could not play. Right, I could not play there. That my idea of bishop to c7 check was a killer idea. It's actually very good. It might be a bishop sacrifice. So let's look at this for a second. Bishop to d6 check. King to b6 is absolutely forced. If we go bishop to c7 check, and he doesn't take it, you saw that we just straight out made him queen to b4 check after he goes to king to b6. We'd go queen to b4 check, king to a6, queen to a4 check, and he's mated. Because, well, he goes king to b5. No, queen a4 check. Yeah, he's mated because the bishop is guarding c6. Oh, no, he goes to b6. And then we hit him. Oh, no, he's on the bishop on c7. Yeah, he's mated. So, bishop to c6. King here, bishop to c7. King to c7 is forced. Otherwise, we just made him. So now we play, it looks like we play queen to b6, d6. That's not working. That's a perpetual check. That doesn't do jack. So we can still go bishop to d6 check. King to b6. Queen to d8 check. He's got to move to one of the white squares. A6 or b5. Yeah, if he goes to b5, bishop is here. We check him. Goes to a6. We check him again. He goes to b5. We hit him with this check, right? Because bishop is on d6. Queen is on d8. Queen d8 check. King a6. Rook a4 check. King b5 is forced. Rook to b4 is guarded by the bishop. Check. And then the bishop is on d6. Oh, okay. Right. Well, now he goes to there. Oh, no. We rook a4 check and we have queen to a5 as mating. He's done. He's completely destroyed here. Now he's mated on the next move by queen to a5 check. Okay, so there you go. That rook to d4 check in the beginning doesn't look like it does anything, except the fact that it does, which you saw. Had to recheck the variations. Like I said, I went through this whole business of check, check, and check here, but that's nothing. This is the situation. All right, I mean, I didn't mention this earlier. I should mention this, I guess, in every video. You're looking at captures, checks, piece contacts, like places you can move, like, for example, queen to g7 to attack this rook for free and win it. As well as, that's the piece contact idea. Anything I could move that, like rook to e4 is a contact for the queen, but it's not guarded. And after piece contacts, situation of the game that I mentioned earlier. If you look at the situation, we've sacrificed 2 pieces for an attack. So we cannot check around and play, what do you call it? Just an old kids game. You can't just, play Red Rover and take a pawn. goofing around and taking a pawn 2 pieces down is going to get you a dead lost position. You're better off to attack and fail than to try to win a pawn 2 pieces down. You are definitely going to lose that. Okay, so I'm just telling you that the situation said this whole... I didn't even have to waste my time, which you saw, to calculate beyond queen takes g3, because we're 2 pieces down. I've maneuvered his king and won a pawn. Whoopity-doo, or as my dad used to say, so what? Hey, my dad's phrase of so what is a legendary phrase that you guys are learning about, that I learned about decades ago. So what? You can't argue with him. So that's the thing. That was a so what moment. I'm like, yeah, no, queen takes g3 is no good. And then, we went through the whole thing of the queen to, the rook to d4 check was the key move because it allows this bishop to get out of jail. And the jail is his own rook. So we got the bishop into the attack to, occupy this d6 spot and c7, allowing the queen and rook to maneuver more or less around the bishop. So when I saw all of this, that's one move. Count the piece movements. Let's just see how far that I saw. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. His next move to b5 is 12 and queen to a5 is 13, which is one of the highest that I've calculated and counted in all my videos. I had one that was 15, but it was a fairly easy endgame position. This one's fairly easy as well, because what you're looking at here, I'm going to give you, again, for those of you who've done my other videos and seen this, you've heard this before. But for those of you who haven't heard this, it's very important, and that's why I'll mention it every time it shows up. This is an attack where you see the result, and it's not obvious, but when I say it, you'll go, oh, that's obvious. It's obvious once I tell you what the deal is. This is the kind of attack that occurs when you have bishops of opposite colors. Now, his white squared bishop never moves, but you look at it. He's strong with pawns on the white squares, simulating bishop control. And my black square bishop is a dominant force in the Swiss cheese that is left. So whenever you play a position that has bishops of opposite colors, even if one of them is buried like that c8 bishop, my rule of bishops of opposite colored games, middle game attacks and end game attacks, those are the two primary ways that you'll see this rule appear, is that you're going to win on the color of the attacking bishop. So, is it a shocker that this game white is winning on the dark squares because he has a dark squared bishop and they look like Swiss cheese? No, it's not a surprise at all. In fact, it will never surprise you guys ever again. You're going to see this and go, oh. So, when you see this in your games, this opposite color bishop idea, I think it's 99% of the time. This is an estimation. I have not literally researched opposite color bishops and see, but to say it's 99% of the time is just, giving you a gut feeling that that's where you're going to win, is on the color of the attacking bishop. Every once in a while you might make a queen or a rook or a knight move that wins on the opposite color of your bishop, the attacker bishop anyway. Or but almost always it's like, look at the color of the attacking bishop. And you'll notice all the moves I ever really mentioned, no, the rook is the exception. The rook is the only piece that went to a white square. The queen was dominating the black squares. The bishop, of course, can only dominate black squares. But this game position was won by the domination of the a3 to f8 diagonal by the bishop, and the domination of the a5 to the d8 diagonal of the queen. That is the key. This was an opposite colored bishops middle game attack that was crushed and would be ended on queen to a5, a move that wins on the dark squares, as the rule says, okay? This is my own personal rule. Now, maybe some Grandmaster book has this where I have never seen it. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I'm just telling you what I know. So, I am not shocked that that's how it worked out. But I did this, and you heard it. This is all the stuff that just looked like what needed to be done, because you have limited resources here. We're 2 pieces down, yet we forced checkmate because we paid attention, looked at different options, calculated correctly, spotted the correct defensive moves for black to make it as, that he was going to make it as hard as possible, and was able to defeat those anyway. So this is exactly how you have to handle tournament game situations. And practicing these situations in these problems like we're doing, this is how you gain skill. Now, I've seen other videos of really good players where they're sitting there and they're speaking in monotone, and it's just like this, and we're going to move the bishop to this square. And then after that, the opponent will reply with another move, and then we will move our queen to another different square. Who cares? It might be true and everything, but you're not getting, there's no excitement. So they're they're doing this the way that this is boring. And if you bore the people, they're not going to be inclined to be checking out your videos, because it's just like going to math class when you're not a math student. Okay? And that's the problem, is that a lot of those people can be very monotone and uninspiring. I'm not monotone, and I'm not uninspiring. What can I say? So, anyway, you're seeing these exciting attacks. And I'm explaining these to you. Hopefully, you guys are appreciating aspects of these as you improve. You do it every day, you're going to get better. It's just that simple. Okay, let's do another one. Wow. Right off the instantaneous look, knight b5 check, knight captures bishop. Now, not bad. We would have 2 knights versus a rook. That's the differential of material. With 2, 4, 6 pawns for black, 2, 4, 5 pawns for white. Very, very close. We're slightly winning on this one. It seems unlikely that that's all that you'd have. But sometimes that's what it is. I mean, after knight takes e3, you're threatening knight takes c2. Knight takes c2 is going to be devastating as well if it ever happens, because you can add knight to c6 and knight to d4. But I don't think that actually happens. It's all right, no big deal. The problem is knight takes g4 check, king to I don't know, let's just say, to make it interesting, king g3, attacking our knight and shutting off his escape. So knight takes e3. The rook first has to guard c2. He literally cannot allow us to play knight takes c2. The problem for us is that after he does that, we have to prepare a way for our knight to come out of e3. So that's the key. Taking the bishop, okay, that's a really lower level player that can see this. What separates the men from the boys is, can we take this bishop and then extract our knight? That's the key. So that's the question. Can we extract our knight? So let's look at this. Knight takes g4 check, king g3. Knight takes e3. We got to figure out, what is he going to do? He needs to. I'm not saying he has to, but the f1 rook is under assault. So is c2. So to me, the obvious moves to look at would be rook f2. Seems to be much more dangerous than rook f to c1. I mean, that move doesn't seem that, threatening. I mean, I've got king g5, and I'm going to tell you goodbye, Charlie. I'm going to go king g4, and you ain't escaping, bro. So the thing is, if he goes rook to f2, and if we go king to g5, remember that bishop has been eaten by our knight. Now, if we go king g5 to protect our knight when it goes to g4, then he gets rook f7, and we in trouble. But I see a different move. So let's go back to the beginning, start again. This is where you practice mentally doing this. Knight takes g4 check, king g3. Knight takes e3, rook to f2. And then the move to protect our knight escape would be g4. I'm sorry, h5. That protects the g4 square so that if he brings that other rook, for example, rook on the b file to e1, attacking our knight, we just play knight to g4, and there's nothing he could do. So my answer to the question is, can we eat the bishop and escape? My answer is yes. Now, there's another thing we could look at briefly. I looked at this myself, so I'm going to run through the moves so you can look at it yourself and see what you think. Because you need to look at it and go, doesn't work or does work. Knight takes g4 check, king g3, knight takes bishop, rook f2. That's the best move, I'm sure of it. There's two moves to look at. One of them is knight to c6, and then you see our knight gets corralled by rook to e1. There's no escape for our knight. That's knight c6 is too slow because we can't get to d4. If we got to d4, it might be a different story. But anyway, so that doesn't work. But we can do this one more time. Knight takes g4, check, king g3, knight takes bishop, rook to f2, the best move. Then b3 is a possibility. I don't think it works. But I don't think b3 is a good move. But we have to look at this. Threatens to play, of course, knight takes c2. But he takes the pawn. Whatever. Either way, his pawn is guarded by the other rook, so he could take it with the rook if he wants to. And again, our knight, well, I wouldn't take it with the... White should take with the pawn, because that keeps the knight from escaping to the first rank, from D to escaping to D1. So you need to look at this and go, yeah, I don't think this works either. So these are things you have to look at just to make sure that there's no tricks that let it work. If we could also play, one more thing to look at is this: knight takes g4 check, king g3. Knight takes bishop, rook to f2, knight takes c2, rook takes knight. Does this get anywhere? I don't think it does. I think if you push b3, he just plays rook c to b2, and you lose your pawn, and we lost the game. But these are things you have to look at, because now this one to me was fairly obvious that this would fail. But there will be games where it is the right thing to do. But if you don't practice looking at these things in this position, then you never get better at looking at these things in this position at other options that are inferior. Just looking around will help your overall chess game. I'm confident that we take this. And we're just going to eat this, and he can cram it sideways. Oh, my thing was on the deal and it accidentally hit it. I didn't need a hint. I already figured the whole thing out. So forget you, chump. Ha ha. Yeah, I don't care about these points. They mean nothing to me. I solved this problem, and everybody watched me do it. But this is how you solve the problem. I figured this out, that the question was, could we take the bishop and then extract our knight? And the answer was yes. But we found the answer to the question. First off, we had to figure out if the obvious take with check, take the bishop was extractable. And so we had to ask the question. When you ask the right question, that helps you. And as you saw, I understood that when I asked the correct question of can we extract the knight? Well, his moves that he played were all moves that were designed to stop the extraction. So when I said, can we take the pawn? Okay, check. And then take the bishop. You know, I visualized we're going to take the bishop. Well, so where does this king need to go? Well, clearly king to h1 doesn't help stop my knight. He's going to try and stop it. That's why I said, well, he's going to play king to g3 because he's attacking my knight. And he's attacking the retreat square. That's the key. I should have said that specific phrase. I didn't. Well, that's okay. We got it anyway. You get the drift. You probably understood where I was getting at. So we take the bishop. That wasn't the problem. We figured out, like I said, he has to play rook f2 or rook c1, or I'm going to eat this. Play this, and, you know, sayonara. You ain't getting me. And like I said, clearly, this rook f to c1 doesn't do jack. King to g5, or whatever, or h5, either one is fine. So this was clearly the move that's going to give us the most problem, because king to g5 now is met by the hammering rook f7. And this is the thing that the reason I'm able to solve these problems is because I'm able to, with experience, to figure out what the other side needs to do. And if I do that, if you figure out what the opponent needs to do, the better you are at that ability, the more likely you are to be able to solve the problem. Because if you're thinking he's going to go king to h1 and he plays king to g3, you're going to, oh, I didn't see that. Okay. And it's going to shock you and it messes you up. It just does. And as you gain experience, you'll be more accurate, and the ones you miss will shock you less. So once I realized, you know, that yes, we could get it out, but we had king to g5 or h5. Well, with this rook here, king to g5 is horrible because he hits our knight with tempo, and he's going to eat this. And there's nothing we can do about it. So that was the whole thing. I asked the correct question, like a crime detective. I'm asking the question that a crime detective would ask. Like, you know, those of you who've seen the old TV show Columbo, that guy was really terrific. He was always asking these questions. And these questions that he asked are just devastating questions. Another one is one that I know you guys would know for sure. You know, Matlock. And the younger guys will know about Matlock because, you know, Grandpa Simpson, Matlock, used to watch Matlock. So we ask the right questions. That's what separates the men from the boys. You know, I nailed the heck out of that dude, 25-49. That was that bishops of opposite color. This is a tough problem. This bishops of opposite colors problem was a toughie. But I nailed it with proper training. This is the thing. There's just no substitute for proper training. And what we're doing is proper training. But you just don't see this on YouTube. I've looked. A lot of great players, you know, explaining games and what have you, but they're not explaining it quite to the way that you need to do it to apply it to your own tournament play. That's what I'm trying to do. And, you know, I don't care what this thing says. When my screen went black, I hit the mouse button and it clicked on the hint. Like, I didn't need a hint. You already know the answer. I had already figured this all out. But see, my thing is, it's not me figuring this out, which I have to do. That's only part of it. I have to figure it out and show you how I'm figuring it out so that you can take these techniques mentally and put them into use in your own games or other problem solvings that you do on your own. That's the thing that I'm doing, is I'm trying to bring this power from myself to you through these videos. So hopefully you guys got a lot of information out of this video and enjoyed what you saw, because there were some pretty good problems in here and we kicked butt. Okay, let's just be honest. So I hope you enjoyed it. You guys know what to do. I'll talk to you later.